Hi, I am Allie Camilletti, and you are listening to Snack Leadership. I will be talking about everything leadership, broken down into bite-sized pieces. You will hear what different leadership skills look like in organizations and how they can rise teams up or take them down. I help leaders build resilience and improve performance by bringing awareness to opportunity behaviors in my business. Spark your mindset. I provide leadership and sales coaching, as well as team building and guest speaking. My hope is for you to feel inspiration and to create a spark in your mindset. Hi everyone. Today we are talking about metacognition. Metacognition is the awareness and understanding of one's own thought process. It involves thinking about thinking, which includes self-regulation, reflection, and control over how one learns, remembers, and solves problems. Oh, I really do love this topic. And I'm so grateful for Steve Scanlon, who introduced us to this whole idea. So I'm going to share with you an actual article, and it's called Agile Thinking, Using Metacognition to Achieve Workplace Goals by Herman.com. It'll be in the show notes. I encourage you to go and look at it at a later time because I'll reference there's an assessment you can take. But let's kind of get into, again, why thinking about thinking matters. So struggling to find the right approach to a problem, taking a step back and thinking about how you think, also known as metacognition, can help you gain clarity, adjust your approach, and find a way forward. So I've been thinking a lot lately about how I think, and it's been sparked by a book I'm listening to called The 7 Primal Questions. It's deep. If you like personal work, you'll like this book. It might be too much for some, though, because it is deep. And what I really am enjoying about this book is that it asks you 7 questions. And if you say no, it will share with you what ends up happening on the other side because you say no. And I'll just use the example. The first one is, am I safe? And so it talks about how you make up for if that's a no for you. And one of the pieces is really hyper focusing on your finances, which makes total sense. But I've always wondered, why I do the things I do just because I'm a curious person by nature. And this book is really feeding it. So when you shift your thinking and adapt to challenges, you improve problem solving, leadership, and collaboration. And so for me, what I'm paying attention to is when maybe one of those adapting pieces that I'm seeing from this book are kind of riding shotgun, I'm going to pay attention to what's happening for me. Am I feeling a no with that one question? And how can I reframe it so I'm in a more healthy and balanced place? They say by using metacognition strategies, you can build mental agility in the workplace and think more effectively. So why is it important, metacognition? By developing stronger metacognitive skills, you can make more intentional, well thought out decisions, right? So if I'm acting in that place of, no, I don't feel safe, and so I'm hyper focused on my finances, and I'm like, oh, let me back up from that, it could really hinder my creativity because I'm so in that place of thinking about finances instead of let's get creative. It also can help you adapt more easily to new challenges and changing priorities. Spot and overcome biases that might cloud your judgment, right? And then communicate and collaborate better by understanding different thinking styles. So one of the things that I recently did is I had an owner reach out to me and she said, Allie, I have some ideas for you on some programs that you could be offering, because I had talked to her at a recent conference about what I was kind of doing and that I'm going to expand it. I'm not sure what that looks like yet. And I loved being able to talk to her because she thinks differently than I think. And I asked her, I'm like, since you offered, I want to kind of ask you more questions. She's like, and I'm happy to give you input and support you in this. I was like, great. But it was wonderful to have her perspective on some of the questions. And for me, it was just amount of time and how often we dive into the one focus topic, as well as pricing. Because again, with me in that, am I safe? Oftentimes what can happen is I'll reduce my pricing because it'll go to that like unworthiness piece. And that isn't good. And I've been much better at it. But I also pay attention to when people and like when people say, well, that feels a little high. She goes, but also I am a little cautious about what I spend. I'm like, okay, so that puts it in perspective. I also know these are the prices I've been charging. I do see my worth in what I'm offering, and it is working. So the ability to shift and refine your thinking is what sets high-performing professionals apart. When you're aware of how you think, you can adjust your approach to get better results, no matter the challenge. Metacognition and whole brain thinking. So this concept of whole brain thinking, they break down in this article about 4 different thinking styles in this model. And so understanding how you think is one thing, but knowing how to use that knowledge is another. Herman's whole brain thinking framework offers a practical way to apply metacognitive strategies by categorizing thinking into 4 quadrants. So the 4 quadrants, and they have a beautiful chart that's color-coded, but I'm just going to share the different 4 quadrants. So the first one's analytical, which is logical, data-driven thinking. Then organized, which is practical, detail-oriented thinking. Relational, people-focused, empathetic thinking. And then experimental, big picture, strategic thinking. I am going to use the example of a woman that I just wrapped up some leadership coaching with her. And I want to say it was like a year's time that we spent together. And she made my day. In our wrap up, she talked about what she had learned the most that she wanted to make sure she remembered. And during our time together, what had happened is the company went under a big financial shift that happened with implementing new departments and just growth challenges. And so they had to really focus on being strategic and efficient in their departments. Now, she manages a housekeeping department. And so when we were talking, I'll use her example about what she kind of shared. So they say recognize your dominant thinking style. And she shared that her dominant thinking style before was really relational. It was people-focused, empathetic thinking. And so she learned about knowing when to shift her thinking to a different approach. You can enhance problem solving, creativity, and collaboration. And what happened is basically she needed to shift into that thinking of more of and so as I look over these, it was logical, data-driven thinking. Because our heart can get so in it sometimes that we forget the business part. And we want to be heartfelt people, hospitality, right? I work a lot in vacation rentals. That's a big base of it. But we also need to run a business. And we don't want to run the business into the ground financially. So each of us has access to our whole brain, which means we have latent abilities in all of the above mental processes, right, that we talked about. Agile thinkers cultivate them to an extraordinary degree. They have an assessment if you want to understand your thinking style. But the idea is just kind of think about your one leading thinking style. And for this woman, it was that relational thinking style. So if we want to go through like strategies to improve your thinking style, let's start with number 1, and that is develop self-awareness of your thinking style. The first step in applying metacognition is to understand how you naturally approach the problems. So she saw that. She's like, oh, I have been more empathetic than focusing on the data. I need to balance that. Are you analytical or detail-oriented? Do you thrive in big picture thinking? Recognizing your tendencies help you identify when a different approach may be more effective. She saw a different approach was more effective. Then ask reflective questions. So reflection is at the core of metacognition strategies. Regularly ask yourself, what thinking style am I using right now? Is my current approach working, or should I try a different one? Now, one of the things we talked about is I asked her, I said, what are you going to do to continue your personal development and your leadership growth? And she shared that she is going to spend time at the end of the day reflecting on certain conversations and what happened throughout that day and analyze how she handled situations. We don't want to analyze it in a place of being anxious, because this can be a form of anxiety when we do that in an unhealthy place and we kind of spin on it a lot, right? Steve and I talked about like getting in our heads. I think about spinning on it, but instead sit down, journal about it. That's what will create that shift. And ask yourself, am I relying too heavy on one way of thinking? This self-questioning process builds mental agility in the workplace by encouraging flexibility in decision-making. Third, plan, monitor, and adjust your thinking. A structured way to improve metacognition is through plan, monitor, adjust. Plan, identify the best cognitive strategies before starting a task. Monitor, continuously assess whether your approach is effective. Adjust, shift your thinking style if you encounter challenges. I mean, what's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. In her situation, it was where she just felt so bad about shifting people's time off and giving them, they needed to go down to like 4 days instead of 5 days a week, and instead focusing on what they needed to do for the business so that people could still have jobs. They use the example of like experimental thinking. So if you're brainstorming creative solutions, but struggling to turn ideas into action, shifting into an organized approach could help with structure and execution. And we're going through this right now as I am working with a team and we are building content for education. And we have been brainstorming creative, all of the details. But now what we need to do with our next step is we kind of need to do a timeline of what this is going to look like moving forward, so how we can execute it. Fourth is strengthen cognitive flexibility through collaboration. Oh, this is so important. And I love that the team I'm working with, we have a varied age group. And I think that that's really helpful. And sometimes people, they will, think, oh, we just need this type of people, or I want to hire somebody like myself. No, you don't want to hire people that are exactly like you. You want to hire people that don't have the skills that you have that complement you to be really effective. So working with colleagues who have different thinking styles expands your cognitive flexibility. For instance, an analytical thinker might approach a problem with logic, while a relational thinker considers its impact on people. Diverse perspectives lead to stronger solutions. Oh, I love this topic so much. And so I encourage you, go out there, think about how you're thinking, take the assessment. The link will be in the show notes at Herman, and it's HERMANN.com. I'll leave with you this thought. Metacognition is more than simple reflection. It's an internal dialogue between the self as thinker and the self as learner. By Teresa Diaz. Thank you for tuning in to Snack Leadership. I hope you felt inspiration, motivation, and felt your mindset spark. Snack Leadership is recorded and produced by myself, Ali Camilletti, and music by Shireen Amini.